I'm sure every one of us has found ourselves in this ridiculous situation at least once in our lives. A drop of super glue and your fingers are glued together for good. And there you stand, trying to pry them apart, with just one thought running through your head. Who the hell invented this devilish stuff? I used to think the same thing, friends, until I dug deeper. And what I'm about to tell you will turn your understanding of this sticky substance upside down once and for all, because the history of superglue is a real detective story, a comedy of errors, and a scientific drama all rolled into one. And yes, let's be honest, historians have somehow sidestepped the most juicy details for decades. But today I'm laying all my cards on the table. Picture this, 1942. World War II is in full swing. America has entered the war. The Eastman Kodak Company, yes, that same one famous for film and cameras, receives a defense contract. They need super transparent plastic. For what? For optical sights on weapons. Not an easy task, and so a young ambitious chemist named Harry Coover Jr. begins experimenting with substances called cyanoacrylates. Sounds scary, right? Well, for him it was just another chemical formula. And so he synthesizes one of them and, oh my god, this stuff sticks to everything it touches, permanently. What a mess, thought Coover. This definitely wouldn't work for sights. Sure, it's transparent, but if it glues everything together, what good is it? The project was shelved and cyanoacrylate was filed under failed experiments. Who could have thought back then that this failure would change the world? Nearly 10 years pass. It's now 1951. Harry Coover is still working at Eastman Kodak, and once again he faces a task, finding heat-resistant transparent plastic, but now for jet fighter cockpits. Cyanoacrylates, recalls Coover. Maybe I could modify them somehow? And again he starts tinkering with them, and here, like in a good movie, His Majesty Chance enters the scene. Coover's colleague, Winfred Joyner, was working with an expensive instrument. A refractometer. Well, that's a device that measures the refractive index of light. And so Joyner, apparently by accident, dripped some experimental cyanoacrylate between two precision prisms of this very refractometer. And then, as if nothing had happened, he decided to separate them. Yeah, right. The prisms bonded together as if they'd been welded. Joyner panicked. The instrument cost a fortune, and now this. He runs to Coover. Harry, we're done for. I've ruined the refractometer. Coover looks at this mess, frowns, and then it clicks in his head, like a light bulb over a cartoon character's head. He suddenly realized what he had considered the main flaw of this substance. Its phenomenal stickiness was actually its main virtue. Nobody believed him when Harry Coover said that this sticky mess, which everyone had been cursing, was actually a revolutionary invention. Wait, Fred, says Coover. Don't rush to throw it away. Come on, give me this glued together thing. He began trying to glue everything in sight. Metal, glass, plastic, rubber. Everything bonded instantly and held with a death grip. Coover was ecstatic. He named his brainchild Kodak number 910, but people quickly dubbed it super glue. Now attention, the million-dollar question. How does this magic work? It's all about rapid polymerization. Cyanoacrylate monomers, these tiny molecular building blocks in the tube, are terribly hungry for water. They need only the microscopic moisture that exists on any surface or in the air. As soon as they sense this moisture, they immediately begin linking together into long chains, polymers. Imagine thousands of microscopic zippers that instantly zip up between two surfaces. One drop and you're done. And these chains are so strong that Coover himself once demonstrated on a TV show how a steel rod glued with just one drop of his adhesive withstood a weight of 7 tons. 7 tons, Carl. That's like 2 adult elephants. But like any superhero, superglue has its weaknesses, its Achilles heel. First, it's quite brittle, that is, it's strong in tension, but not so much in shear or impact. So if you glue something and then give it a good whack from the side, it might come off. Second, it doesn't like greasy plastics like polyethylene or polypropylene. You know why the superglue tube itself is made from such plastic? Because the glue simply doesn't stick to it. Otherwise, it would glue itself shut from the inside. Clever, right? And of course, its main enemy is acetone. Yes, that same liquid for removing nail polish. It destroys those polymer chains. So if you glue your fingers together, don't panic, run for the acetone. Although I confess, I had an incident in childhood. I, an unfinished genius, decided to check what would happen if I licked super glue. Don't try this at home. The sensations, let me tell you, were unforgettable. My mouth glued shut so tight that my mom nearly fainted. We barely got it cleaned off. Speaking of unconventional applications, already in 1956, the first commercial batch of super glue was purchased by, attention, for assembling atomic bombs. Yes, you heard right. Apparently, they also needed to glue something very quickly and very strongly there too. And forensic scientists love super glue. They treat surfaces with its vapors, and fingerprints, even the most invisible ones, become visible. So much for household adhesive. But that's not all. The most dramatic and perhaps most important turn in superglue's history happened again thanks to chance and Coover's powers of observation. Once his little son badly cut his finger, blood gushing, the child crying. Coover, instead of running for bandages and iodine, grabs, that's right, his superglue, and drips it right onto the wound. You would have risked it? I probably wouldn't have, but he did. And the blood instantly stopped, and the wound edges pulled together. Eureka, thought Coover again. This is ready-made medical adhesive. However, the path from this insight to real medical application turned out to be long and thorny. First, during polymerization, cyanoacrylate releases heat. For a small drop, this isn't scary, but if the wound is large, you could get a burn. Second, when breaking down in the body, it released not very useful substances, like formaldehyde. And third, it was too rigid and brittle for living tissues. But Coover didn't give up. He and his team began tinkering with the molecule, lengthening its carbon chain. And, miracle, the new variant, for example, 2-octyl cyanoacrylate, turned out to be much softer, more elastic, polymerized more slowly, didn't heat up as much, and was much less toxic. In 1964, Coover filed an application with the FDA, that's the American Food and Drug Administration, for his medical adhesive. And here begins that very bureaucratic red tape familiar to many inventors. While officials were thinking, the Vietnam War was going on, and American military surgeons, not waiting for official approval, began using experimental cyanoacrylate spray right on the battlefield. Imagine a wounded soldier, liver damaged, massive bleeding, the hospital far away. And the surgeon simply sprays this adhesive on the wound, and the bleeding stops. How many guys this desperation glue saved, history doesn't tell, but the count is definitely in the hundreds, if not thousands. This isn't just gluing a shelf. And just think about it. 34 years passed. 34. Before in 1998, the FDA finally approved medical adhesive based on 2-octyl cyanoacrylate called Dermabond. Today it's used to seal small wounds and surgical incisions all over the world. That's how an accidental sticky substance from the laboratory became a lifesaver. But this isn't the end of the story yet. Ready for a new twist? Because now superglue might change the world again, this time, in the fight against a global problem. Which one? Plastic waste. Yes, those very mountains of plastic that are choking our planet. It turns out that scientists, again digging into the properties of cyanoacrylates, discovered something incredible. If you heat polymerized superglue to about 210 degrees Celsius, it depolymerizes. That is, it breaks down back into its original monomer building blocks, moreover, with up to 93% efficiency. Can you imagine? It's like taking apart a Lego construction into separate pieces to then build something new from them. This opens the way to creating potentially infinitely recyclable plastic. Plastic that won't pollute the environment, but will return to the cycle again and again. This is no longer just glue. This is a whole philosophy. So, friends, ordinary super glue, it would seem, turned out to be a real chameleon, a master of disguise, hiding incredible potential within itself. From an accidental mistake in the laboratory, to gluing atomic bombs, from saving soldiers in Vietnam, to a possible solution to the plastic apocalypse problem. Harry Coover himself, by the way, received the US National Medal of Technology and Innovation for his achievements. And until the end of his days, he said that the main thing for a scientist is openness to the new and the ability to see the unexpected in the familiar. If you enjoyed this historical investigation, hit like and subscribe to the channel, because there are still so many unsolved mysteries and amazing stories ahead. And by the way, there's one detail I deliberately kept quiet about today, but it concerns yet another incredible application of super glue. But about that, some other time. Intrigue